I wouldn't change my house for anything, but I would always change the location, and that's why I love having a house on wheels. I ended up purchasing a little farmhouse on an acre, which the whole purpose of buying this was to have a place to park the tiny house, and now it is a cash flowing rental that I have on the property. This is the only way that I have lived aside from in a bedroom at my mom's house. The question that I get asked the most is, do I hit my head when I get up? I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in a tiny house before. They do have a full walk-in closet. Having no rent and no mortgage payment, I'm able to pick up and travel wherever, and I don't think that would have been possible for somebody my age without having lived tiny.
Will you join me? Will you roll? Make this house our tiny home.
Hi there, my name is Tiffany, and this is my tiny house that I built when I was 18 years old. At 15, 16, I started drawing in high school a bunch of versions of what a tiny house that I would want to live in looked like, and eventually I had to make the decision on trailer and actual construction material. I decided to go with a 20 by 105 inch trailer, which is the max you can do. The common standard size is about 8.5 foot, so mine is about 2 inches extra on either side. I did also upgrade the axles to two 7,000-pound axles, and we are on a 14,000 gross weight limit capacity for the trailer itself, which to me was very important because I have no idea how much things weigh, and so I would rather have spent a little extra in the beginning and be safe with having everything that I essentially wanted inside my trailer without having any failure problems, because ultimately in a tiny house, your trailer is your foundation. And if you get that wrong, you're pretty much screwed from the start. The windows were basically going to be the most expensive part of the tiny house build. Rather than designing the tiny house first and having the windows built to that size, I decided to go out and find recycled windows first and kind of see where I would want them to fit in the tiny house. And that's how I kind of came out with the format for the drawing. And then for the siding, I used metal. I felt like it was really easy to use the metal to work with as I was building this. It is a little bit more hardcore because you do have sparks flying everywhere as you're cutting it with the Makita. However, I figured if these are massive giant panels, we're gonna get more square footage coverage rather than doing panel per panel. And I will say it saved a lot of time, a lot of headache, and it was a very interesting learning experience. We did have to have a custom piece for the roof because my house is at a one slope pitch for the roof. And rather than having a connection piece, which honestly would just give more reason for leaks and things, I just decided to go ahead and buy one full sheet for 20 foot to cover the entire roof of the tiny house. I've been living tiny for 3 years because it took about 2.5 years to build it. I ended up building my tiny house with my dad. My dad did have a lot of carpentry experience prior, and I was tagging along learning through YouTube videos and also taking direction from him through building most of the shell, and the interior and the little details, craftsmanship, that was basically left up to me because he was kind of sick of me at that point doing all the hardcore stuff in the tiny house. Very grateful for his help. So we ended up building it ourselves. I did have tons of help from friends and family. This really is a collective space full of love, and every single detail that I look at over time, I just remember of these people that came in and were so willing and gave so much effort into helping me build my home. The complete tiny house build, as far as I can remember, cost roughly $20,000 to build, and that includes just about everything in here because we used a lot of repurposed materials, definitely aided in that, as well as labor because there were essentially no labor costs. It was all these big guns and friends and family, which I'm very grateful for. What is there not to love about tiny house living? I think I could speak more negatively upon living in a normal house than a non-normal house. In a tiny house, I feel like everything is efficient, everything is fast, everything is close to you. You know, if it's done right, it's very affordable. This is the only way that I have lived aside from in a bedroom at my mom's house, and it's the best thing ever. So I'm located in Central Florida area. We are on agricultural land, so we're kind of in the outskirts of a generally considered big city, and I ended up purchasing a little farmhouse on an acre, which the whole purpose of buying this was to have a place to park the tiny house. The house was definitely an afterthought, but it was easier to get a mortgage for a house than just an empty plot of land. So I went ahead, bought this house, completely gutted it, renovated it, and now it is a cash flowing rental that I have on the property. My tiny house is powered by the grid. I'm connected to the main house on the property here that I own. However, we have a 50 amp power for the whole entire tiny house. It was built for 30 amps, funny enough. But I wanted to have that extra option for extra power just because this is my full-time residence, so we don't have any electrical problems. And as well as the water, we just get water from the well here, so there's no cost and it's free 99. And not to mention my air conditioning unit, the outside unit up here. Everything is attached to the tiny house, which is really important as well in case I ever want to move it. That is not the intention. However, I really wanted it to be its own isolated thing. Let me show you guys a tour of the inside. So right as we walk in, we have my foyer area, and this was kind of planned as an afterthought. This was meant to be part of the kitchen. Now it's become more clothes storage, which we'll see a lot of in my tiny house, which is very important to me when I built it. And again, we have kind of a mirror, we have some shelvings for books, and this was kind of the last piece of the build that collectively got built over the years. Just adding a couple knickknacks here and there. Everything else was pretty much planned to the T, but this was kind of my little oddball corner that I had to make do with, and I think it came out just how I would want it. So this is my tiny house bathroom. It is 3 by about 8. It's very, very small. Any guests that come over complain about it. However, for me personally, it is just enough space for me to have all of my knickknacks, my hair products, my get ready with me stuff. And we have a full-size shower with a glass door, which was a must-have for me. I didn't want to have any water damage, and also too, I really like the elegant look of a clean glass shower. I also have what I call my garage up over the toilet, which we don't open that cabinet, but it fits a lot of stuff in there. And also too, my little vanity here. I absolutely love good lighting when I'm getting ready, so it was really important for me to make the space feel bigger by having a very large mirror with really good lighting. The one thing that I would change in my tiny house, and I still plan on doing this eventually when I get around to it, is the sink situation. This is a very small sink, and although it gets the job done, I would personally like to have like a DIY bowl sink at some point because this is just not cutting it anymore. Moving away from the bathroom and towards the kitchen, as you guys can see right above me, I do have my mini split unit. The lines run inside of a wall, which was kind of really hard to install. However, I think for the airflow purposes of the tiny house, it worked really well, especially since we have a lot of cross ventilation. So I have a window on the side, a door on the side that we open sometimes, and as well as the back sliding door, which we'll get to in a second. So honestly, the ventilation here is great. Moving on to the kitchen here, this is probably one of my most proud accomplishments in the tiny house because there was so much recycled, so much creativity poured into it, and just reusing materials in very creative ways. So of course we have my fridge, memorabilia's here of when I travel, because I do like to travel a lot, especially living in a tiny house. It kind of permits me to do that. Microwave, we have an air fryer, and honestly I think that this is really all you need to make food with, and I do cook twice a day in the tiny house, surprisingly. A lot of people don't believe me when I say that. And of course we have black cabinets, which was a must. When I designed the tiny house, I really wanted a elegant, clean, classy, chic look, very modern, minimalistic style. And so, you know, Carrera looking countertops with the black cabinets was kind of a must-have. And it was really hard to come by, A, because black cabinets are expensive, and B, all of these are soft close, which I absolutely love. And we also have a couple special compartments as well, which I'll get to. These cabinets were actually throwaways from a company that tore them out of an old house, and they decided to just gift them to me for the project because I absolutely loved what I was doing. There were, of course, not the right sizes for the cabinets. So if you guys see the one up top, which is kind of the bar / wine rack, that one used to be a massive 24 by 24 cabinet, and I had to cut it down into a 24 by 12 to make sure that it fit in the little allotted slot. I think we used all of the cabinets that they donated, so we really did not waste any material. And my favorite part, which is something that me and my dad came up to a really good solution with, was the countertop. Now, it looks like stone, as we know in a tiny house. I am on a trailer. I didn't want to add a bunch of extra weight, so we decided to take porcelain tiles 24 by 48 and we basically just installed them as you would flooring. And of course we have like the bullnose, and this is actually recycled backsplash from an old kitchen project, and it works like a charm. I'll put hot pans on here, nothing happens, super easy to clean. The overall aesthetic is exactly what I was trying to go for. As you guys can see, there's a lot of natural light in this tiny house. It's a very big part of it, and it was very important to me. I bought the windows first because I knew it was going to be the most expensive part, meaning that I didn't really have too much choices in sizing and being too picky on that kind of stuff. So I drew the rest of the build around the windows. This being one of them. This is an awning window, which initially the idea was to have it open. We'd have a little bar outside and it'd be like an indoor-outdoor kitchen. That ended up being scrapped, but it is still a really nice awning window, which unfortunately caused the purpose of these cabinets being so high up. Now, I am pretty tall. A lot of people come in here and they have no idea how I access these cabinets. They're pretty functional, at least the bottom shelf for me, and if I have to reach anything else, it's stuff that I don't use very often. And I also felt like there was a lot of negative space in here, although this is very nice to have a lot of natural light. I added in these little lights, and these are battery-powered LEDs. So this was also an afterthought, but I think it came by really cohesively for the full kitchen look. We have my induction stove. This is probably one of my favorite things in the tiny house, and every time I go quite literally anywhere else where they don't have one of these, I get really sad because this heats up so fast. And then of course under here, as I mentioned, we do have some custom features in the tiny house, which also makes everything very accessible and easy, especially as I'm cooking and doing what I have to do in the kitchen. So it was really built for not only feng shui, but also to make things very easy to use and work together. And then moving towards the end here, we have a little overcut, which was meant to be like the dining area. This is usually where I sit to get my work done, as well as eat dinner. And if I have guests over, we do just pull up another chair, and we have this full kind of area up to the stove to use basically as a table. Being able to live so frugally has helped me establish my business and my investments in other things. I create content on social media, and I also am a full-time real estate investor. So I do tons of flips, rental properties. I think having such a small acquainted space has also helped downsize and just know not to purchase more materialistic things. It's helped me a lot in living a little more simply, and as well as the frugal bit, you know, having no rent and no mortgage payment, because it's covered by the tenants that also live on the property. I'm able to pick up and fly wherever, travel wherever, and I've been very blessed to be able to go to such amazing places around the world, and I don't think that would have been possible for somebody my age without having lived tiny. All right, so coming away from the kitchen and into my living room, this is probably one of my favorite spots in the house. As I spoke before, the windows were going to be the most expensive part of the tiny house, and rather than putting a massive 8x8 window in the back, it was a lot cheaper, in fact free, to get recycled sliding doors off of Facebook Marketplace, which did the same effect, and not to mention I have an extra point of egress and access to the outside patio. In the living room, it was also very important for me to keep everything very crisp and clean, only because I like to film a lot of content, so having a blank wall was very important, and not to mention as well, this is the projector wall, so this is where I watch my TV. But of course, in a tiny house, no space only functions for one purpose, so we have this built-in couch situation that, funny enough, I got from a van life tutorial. So this couch actually pulls out all the way and turns into a queen size bed, which was really important for me in case I had guests over, which I've had a couple sleepovers and they said it was comfy enough to sleep on, so I think it's a success. As well as extra storage, so for me, buying a regular couch to put in the living room was not an option, just because I feel like there's so much space wasted underneath. And with these in specific, these are two extremely giant drawers that fit everything and more. They're on wheels, so they just pull out just fine, and it's really easy access for me to get anything that I need. Again, kind of more garage space, if you will, just because they are so massive, and it works really well. And then of course, to go with the blank wall, we have the projector right over the couch, which works just fine. So for movie nights, I will pull this out halfway because it comes in 3 sections. Have kind of like a half bed situation. Pull all the pillows out, pull all the blankets, grab some popcorn, and of course, some fairy lights to tie it all in and have a really nice movie night. And then moving into one of my favorite parts of the build, A, because I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in a tiny house before, and also too, because it was basically engineered and drawn out by me. I don't know how many dozens of versions of this closet that I've 3D sketched, paper sketched. Basically all of the storage underneath the staircase is my walk-in closet, is what I like to call it. So it's very important for me to still have basically like the Hannah Montana closet, if you will, with the rotating clothes, very glamorous, everything on display. And I would say that I accomplished just that because I do have a full walk-in closet. These are all of my dresses, my long sleeves. I also have another cabinet full of clothes, and it functions just like a normal closet would. And then of course, you can't have a closet without a shoe rack. So this was very, very important for me to have, and I think I fitted in the tiny house in the most discreet and functional way. And then also too, because I felt like we didn't get enough space out of this closet, I decided to add in jewelry storage as well. Again, with the display thing, absolutely love it. Most of these were old pieces from my grandmother, so again, I wanted to keep them and have them in a place that works not only for me to see what I'm picking out for the day, but just have them in a nice little spot. And then to close, this is actually a car hood hook that I bought. So it was interesting to find a piece that worked for that was strong enough to hold all of this weight while I was pulling it out. And then moving a little bit forward here, we have a continuation to my glam space, if you will. You can see that there's a half step here. This was meant to be just a full even staircase. However, as I was building it, I noticed that building cabinets was a lot harder than I anticipated, and I really did not want to have janky cabinets in here, so I decided to just go to IKEA and buy these two pieces here that were planned afterwards, but I absolutely loved how it came out and I wouldn't change a thing because this is my little vanity space. So this is the section kitchen from IKEA, and we have basically all of my makeup and more. I used to be a makeup artist and I also create content around makeup, so it was very important for me to, again, have a space to get ready, on display, something where I can just easily pull things out and put them back. And then in the last step, this lid just opens up and we have some shoes in there to keep them out of the way because I was taught to take my shoes off when I go inside the house. All right, so let me take you guys upstairs to my loft. So this is my bedroom, very spacious, very cozy. I absolutely love it. I love it more than I thought I would. I absolutely love sleeping in that cozy, very comforting space. And not to mention we have a full queen size bed up here. Initially this was supposed to have gone that way. That's why the outlets are on either side and that did not fit. So we had to kind of adjust accordingly here, but it came out just perfect. So again, I really like the natural light concept in the tiny house, not only for the downstairs and the overall vibe, but also too when I'm upstairs reading a book or studying, because I did build a full-size desk up here with custom drawers and everything. So this actually little area was meant to be the desk. I found out that I hate working from my bedroom. It takes me out of my space and my element to work. However, it is a really nice little area in case I want to read a book at night or maybe journal some. The question that I get asked the most is, do I hit my head when I get up? Clearly there's more than enough space up here for me and it's very comfortable. I don't feel claustrophobic at all. And so it works just perfect and it definitely accomplishes its mission of being my bedroom. All right, let me show you guys my little outdoor patio area. This was a very sacred space for me. Obviously, I could only build this after I actually had land to park my tiny house on. So since I had it parked elsewhere before, I did not have the option or opportunity to have this. So as soon as I brought it onto my property, this was the first thing that I wanted to get done, to have this kind of little backyard oasis that really felt very cozy and brought the inside vibe of the tiny house to the outside. So we have here a full deck patio that I hand built myself, as well as this giant pergola, which we hung up a bunch of Christmas lights, so at night this lights up very nicely. And this was basically just a space that was meant to be like a hangout area in case I have friends over and the weather's nice, permitting in Florida, and also just kind of recreate a little bit of that Brazil backyard feeling because my whole family's Brazilian and I used to always go to my grandparents' farm as a kid. In fact, this hammock here came from their farm, so I brought a little piece of home to my home here, which is very nice. And there's space for patio furniture, and at one point I did have a little jacuzzi there and it was just way too much to take care of, so she's just a patio now with no water feature. I think a message that I would like to share that would have helped me back in the day when I was kind of thinking about if this was going to be the right choice for me, it's that you just have to pull the trigger and do it. I started building my tiny house before I even knew where I was going to park it. I just knew that that plan was going to unfold as things came, and everything worked out better than I could have anticipated. Now that I've been living tiny for 3 years, this still continues to be my full-time residence, and it's going to continue to be for as long as I can see down the future. One thing that will change, however, is that we are currently in the process of acquiring a mobile home park or an RV park to convert into a tiny house park, hopefully somewhere in the Florida area, because this is a market that I am very invested in. And with that, obviously working on a project like that and being able to create a space like that, I would love to live there myself. So I would love to take my tiny house and park it at my tiny house park once that comes into fruition. Like I said, I wouldn't change my house for anything, but I would always change the location, and that's why I love having a house on wheels.
If you like this week's episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and check back soon because we have new unique home tours publishing all the time. And if you'd like to join our team and get access to members-only content and unique perks, make sure you click on the join button below.